In this video, we'll implement authentication filter. Quite a lot of preparation must be done before we secure our Spring Boot 3 Kotlin app with JWT tokens, right? But don't worry, we're almost there. Before we implement our filter, let me quickly recap what exactly are filters in Spring Framework. So, every request made to our Spring Framework application goes through the filter chain, where each filter in the chain can perform some operations on the request or response. We could add, I don't know, some logger, some telemetry, whatever. In our case, we want to use this feature to authenticate requests made to our REST API. We want to check whether a user sent a JWT token and whether the sent token is valid. And if everything is fine, we want to update the Spring Security context. And that's what exactly we'll implement in a moment. So let's navigate to the config package and introduce our custom filter. New Kotlin class JWT authentication filter. And I would like this class to inject two things: the user details service and the token service, which we implemented a bunch of videos ago. The first one will be user details service, private, val user details service. It will be custom user details service. And the second one will be token service, private, val token service, which we already implemented. Of course, I must implement this filter as a Spring component. This is not service repository, so I'll use the generic component right here. Additionally, I would like to extend the once per request filter. Once per request filter. Let's check the documentation, what it says about this filter. So this is filter-based class that aims to guarantee a single execution per request dispatch. So this makes sure that it will be invoked only once, and that's what we want to do in our REST API, right? We get the call, we validate once, and that's all. The next thing I would like to do will be invoking the doFilter internal function. Ctrl+O, doFilter internal, and as you can see, this one takes three arguments: the HTTP server request, response, and filter chain. In a moment, we'll see how to work with them, but first, let's implement the logic to check our token. The first thing I would like to do will be to simply obtain the authorization token, right? So, val out header. This will be a nullable string because it may happen that this header was not passed. And I would like to use the request argument, request dot get header, and get the value of authorization header. Authorization header. So whenever you are sending the JWT token to a REST API, you provide the authorization space bearer blah 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 some JWT token. So this line is responsible for reading the whole header value, which will be usually, if passed, bearer XYZ. Right here will be the JWT token. So the next thing I would like to check here will be whether our authorization header, which we obtained right here, contains the bearer token. If it doesn't contain, then we'll simply invoke the filter chain doFilter to pass the filter to the next filter in the chain. So if I would introduce in a moment the extension function, so out header dot does not contain bearer token, and let's introduce our extension function, private string does not contain bearer token, and this one must return a boolean flag. I forgot fun right here, and we can do right here two checks. The first one, this is null, or it does not start with a bearer. This starts with bearer. So to sum up, it will return true, does not contain bearer token, whenever the authorization header was not found or the value was not starting with bearer. As the next step, I mentioned that we should invoke the doFilter and return. Filter chain, doFilter, let's pass the request and response that we got to our filter, and simply return so that the rest of the function will never be executed in such a case. Okay, so at this point I am pretty sure there is better, so I would like to extract the JWT value. Val JWT token equals out header. At this point we are sure that this is not null. Extract token value. And again, I'll introduce an extension functions which I really like when working with Kotlin. Private fun string extract token value, and we'll return a string right here. So in order to extract the JWT, the only thing we need to simply scrap the substring after the bearer. So this substring after, and we can specify the exact text bearer with a space, because the format will be bearer, space, and the JWT token. As a result, we will get our JWT. And with that done, we can extract email. And to do so, we'll use the token service and the method which we already implemented a few videos ago. So val emails equals token service extract email, and let's specify JWT token to this function. Wonderful. At this point, I would like to verify whether the email is not null, because this function will return the nullable response. And if it is not null, and additionally we don't have any currently authenticated user, then I would like to validate the token, and if it is valid, then I'll update the context. Don't worry, we'll get to that step by step. So let's start with first checking if the email is not null. If email is not null, we could use let similarly. And again, I wanted to check if there is no currently authenticated user. Security context holder, context holder, get context, authentication, and let's make sure that this is null at this point. Following, let's find the user. Val found user equals user details service load user by username, and let's specify email as the username. Again, username and email refers to the same thing in our application. Now I would like to check if the token is valid. If it is, I will update the context. If token service is valid, first I'll provide the JWT token, and following found user. If that's true, update context found user request, and let's implement this function. Alt plus enter, a window popped up, create a function, update right here. Let's stick to the default, and what we need to do now is firstly we'll instantiate of token as a username password authentication token. So in this case, val out token equals username password authentication token. Username password authentication token, this is the second position, and to this token we'll first pass the found user of type user details, which is the principal. The next value will be null, and found user authorities. So found user. For the credentials, I would like to put null, and lastly we'll put authorities. Found user authorities. Excellent. Additionally, for this class, I would like to set the details, and as the details, I will pass the instance of web authentication detail source with build details. Out token details equals web authentication detail source. Instantiate that, set build details, and the request. Lastly, we'll update our authentication. So exactly the same, we did this check right here. Now I would like to set our value. Security context holder, get context, authentication, and let's specify auth token. Ctrl Alt plus L, format the code. Excellent. The last thing inside our if check will be to simply pass the filter to the next filter. So filter chain, that's exactly the same we did right here. Do filter request response. So To sum up what we did here. Firstly, we check the request if it contains the authorization header. If no, we do not proceed with this function and we simply pass the request down the filter chain. Nextly, we extract the JWT token. A valid authorization header value consists of the bearer space JWT token, so we must simply extract the token itself. Following, read the email. If it is not null and there is no present authentication, this is really important in our security context, then we first try to find the user, loading it by username. It will use our repository underneath. Later, we check if the token is valid, and if everything matches, then we update the context with our principal. And basically, that's all for the authentication filter. In the next video, we'll add security configuration and we set how we should authorize the user to access particular resources. See you in the next video.